remember guys to like, share, comment and follow, and turn on the notification bell so that you don't miss any of our new uploads that we do upload here. Today is the 25th of February 2023. So guys, the United States, US and the United Kingdom, UK, are determined to spoil the country's elections to isolate Zimbabwe on the international stage, and in their subversive plots they've roped in non-governmental organizations, NGOs and some media outlets. Commenting on a story published in the Herald on Thursday detailing how the US was dangling $37 million to NGOs to stealthily interfere in the forthcoming elections, presidential spokesperson and deputy chief secretary communications in the office of the president and cabinet, Mr. George Charamba, said the government was on top of the situation and would not hesitate to clamp down on subversive elements, especially now that the private voluntary organization PVO bill was set to become law. While there was a flurry of activity as the country gravitated towards the 2023 elections in the past year, several attempts by the West, particularly the US, to sneak in so-called monitors were thwarted by alert authorities. Mr. Charamba said the heightened activities in the NGO sector were just a tip of the iceberg. A lot has been happening and a lot will continue to happen as we head up towards the 2023 harmonized elections. In fact, you'll be surprised that from as early as mid last year, we deported several deputations from American institutions, principally IRI, International Republican Institute, and NDI, National Democratic Institute, who were trying to force themselves on us on the grounds of what they termed long-term monitoring and observation of local elections, said Mr. Charamba. The mission of the US, which had become more daring as elections loom, was essentially to scout for conduits to funnel illicit money into Zimbabwe and get manpower that would be used to monitor elections, but in reality trigger chaos in the event the opposition lost elections. It has also emerged that the US Secretary of State in the Bureau of African Affairs, Mr. Robert Scott, was set to visit Zimbabwe to push for his country's interests and interfere in Zimbabwe electoral process through a meeting with Zimbabwe Electoral Commission ZEC chairperson Justice Priscilla Chigumba. We are going to very courteously ask this gentleman, who has invited himself on us, that he must wait for an agreement between America and Zimbabwe, for America to have right of audience with our chairperson of ZEC on the other hand, and for Zimbabwe to have similar rights with the Attorney General of the US before they go for elections. Diplomacy proceeds is essential. We assert our sovereignty, said Mr. Charamba. For the US in particular, which still maintains illegal economic sanctions on Zimbabwe, there was a realization that the sanctions were spectacularly backfiring as they missed out on investment opportunities in Zimbabwe and what was worse, to their international trade rivals. Further, the US finds itself isolated as the European Union member states have reviewed sanctions against Zimbabwe owing to reforms that have been implemented by the Second Republic. So what the Americans are wishing for and what they would want to see happening are elections fought with violence, discredit, so that they can then use that information to discredit the legitimacy of the poll outcome. What Americans aim to do is to spoil things for us, import violence, sponsor violence, discredit the electoral process so that they can have a face-saving excuse to maintain their illegal sanctions against this country. That has nothing to do with a democratic process here, but everything to do with what they consider as a hostile foreign policy, which Zimbabwe is accused of pursuing in respect of mining, in respect of war in the East, which, by the way, has nothing to do with us, by certainly in respect of our resources. We reserve the right as a sovereign nation to decide who to partner with. After all, they are the ones who choose to sanction us, in which case they've discounted themselves as a potential partner in our economy. Thus, Mr. Charamba said, to spoil the elections, the US will stop at nothing to throw spanners into the country's electoral process, ever apprehensive of a ZANU-PF victory. They've had several meetings, both internally, in other words, inside Zimbabwe, as well as within the neighboring hood of Zimbabwe. And I want to mention names at this juncture where they've been staging meetings which are graced by certain naive Zimbabweans, meetings meant to plan and map mechanisms for pushing illicit funds that will then be used to support the opposition and to support para-opposition organizations, which will tend to give credits and amplify messages of dissatisfaction with the electoral process from opposition members. As events would have it, we are very much deep in their structures and we know everything that they are planning. We even know the amounts they have placed in different institutions within the neighborhood, and much worse, we know the channels that they are going to use. But such days of funding supervision in the name of civic education are soon to end, as the PVO bill is set to become law. That money is beginning to be brought into the country. We know this, the spores, and we will soon clamp down on them. What we lacked was the legal framework to allow our various institutions to take decisive action against that wanton interference by the Americans. One hopes that as soon as the bill becomes law, then we will see our systems going into full swing to see that all that mischief is dealt with, said Mr. Charamba. The NGOs are also planning an orgy of violence similar to that which was instigated by the MDC in 2018 when it lost the elections, and this time around the CCC activists will be embedded as election monitors at 10,250 polling stations around the country. This is a deployment of violence gabbed as monitors in the event that the CCC loses the election, something that they know is inevitable, said Mr. Charamba. While America's grip with Zimbabwe is over the investment and Zimbabwe's position in international geopolitics, the UK, on the other hand, is determined to scuttle Zimbabwe's bid to rejoin the Commonwealth, and any incidents of violence in the forthcoming election will work in their favor. The British are worried that the Commonwealth member states have taken a firm position that Zimbabwe must come back into the Commonwealth, and that decision must be a result of a sum total of member states. It means that British, the Australians, and Canadians no longer have prerogative of deciding Zimbabwe's application. What the British are gunning for is a discredit election, which will then be used to block Zimbabwe's re-entry, said Mr. Charamba. Lured by cash, Mr. Charamba said a publisher of a local newspaper is said to stand on the ticket of CCC in the forthcoming elections. The newspaper structures are being used to support the opposition in the name of supporting the media in the country. We are aware of that. We have youngsters straight from university, very innocent. We have now been conscripted to be part of those organizations that have been hastily put together because of the lure of money. They don't realize that in terms of international law, it is actually seditious subversion. You are really laying yourself up open to seditious charges, and they carry with them a very long sentence. This is friendly advice to all Zimbabweans who are associated with foreign-created subversive organizations that they are skating on very thin ice. The long arm of law will catch them. And so, guys, that's the latest here. And yes, it's from Herald. Is according to Mr. George Charamba, the man is saying that the US and the UK are out to discredit Zim elections, which are happening July, August this year, 2023. Inyaya zvakare ye private voluntary organization bill, PVO bill, is I've seen a petition on social media at the moment. People are signing petition saying that Mnangagwa should stop this PVO bill. They should refuse to sign this PVO bill into law, and I've seen that petition circulating on social media. And on my own views, my personal views, I feel it's a waste of time, because we all know what the bill like somewhere, and whoever came up with this bill is the same person who actually reject a bill. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Munaka we idea yoda ku monitor ma NGOs nema civil society organizations dem munatira kuti reject a bill rakafunga iye kuti this is suitable to monitor ma organizations aya, because vari kufungidzira kuti ma organizations aya ndo ari kuunza mari muZimbabwe, osupporta ma opposition political parties, okonzesa nyonga inozoitika panguva dzema elections, especially panyaya dzema campaign apa, kuti amwe NGOs vanenge vachitopa ma activists mari. We can all go back kuma 2017 atakuona ma groups akawanda achibuda, ma activists, ma groups wana tajamuka, ma activists angobuda from nowhere. takazonzwa izvo zvakare pamberi chitonzi some of these guys vanenge vachitopiwa mari kuti vaite zvanenge vachita. Mapress conference aingoitika muna 2017 towards my elections at 2018 asinganzwisike. Every day paitoitwa a press conference, munhu aibuda achitaura this that, munhu yobva asungwa. Kusungwa kwaanoita iwewo anenge achiita mari, and saka it becomes a job for some other people is who are now making money out of nyaya dzekuita ma-press conference nekusungwa nekuita ma-demonstrations. I mean, people were getting paid. So this year now they're trying by all means to stop that kind of situations akaitika muna 2017. That's why tiri kuona this PVO bill rikunzi zoni soon ED will be signing it into law, but vanazhinji vari kuti zoni no, this will also scare out ma-NGOs vanobatsira munzvimbo dzakasiyana-siyana kumaruwa. I mean, they hope a lot, but there are other ones vari kunzi zoni vari kuita zvisirizvo ndo vari kutry by all means kuda kunzi vakwanise kumiswa. Yes, and the government will be monitoring them kuona kuti mari iri kuuya yakamira sei at the end of the year, kuti vataridza mabhukusi avo kuti mari dziri kufamba sei, vari kuita here zvavakataura kuti vari kuya muZimbabwe kuzoita. Ndo pane nyaya yese ipapo, because vari kuti zvona vanhu aiwa vari kukonzeresa nyonga. This is what Mr. Charamba is saying here panyaya ye-US and the UK trying by all means to discredit the Zimbabwe pose. At the same time we are waiting kuti tinzwe nyaya yekuti Zimbabwe inokwanisa here kureadmitwa ku-Commonwealth, and this has been one of President Mnangagwa's, I would say, main pointers panyaya the foreign policy. So I'm going to be keeping you guys up to date with the latest here on Daily News, Breaking News on Principal Entertainment TV. Get it in the comment section. Remember to like, share, comment and follow, and turn on the notification bell so that you don't miss any of our new uploads that we do upload here. Bless up.